My name is Rick Petherbridge, and I'm here to talk tennis. And today we're going to take a look at the men's draw at the US Open and take a look at who we think is going to come through. So, the big story at the US Open this year, and the biggest tennis story of the year, is will Novak Djokovic win his fourth consecutive Grand Slam? We know that he won the Australian, and we know that he won the French, and we know that he won Wimbledon. And we also know right now he's tied with Federer and Nadal with a total of 20 career Grand Slams. So Djokovic has an opportunity to do something that I think would clearly make him the greatest of all time, right? And that would first, the most impressive thing would be to win a calendar slam. And nobody's done that since Rod Laver did it back in the 60s. And that's an incredible accomplishment. Not only, but it's not just that, of course. If he wins, not only does he have the calendar slam, but now he has one more slam than both Federer and Nadal, and he's younger and he's playing better than those two. And it sort of clearly gives him the career edge in terms of total Grand Slams. And of course, if you look at the last couple of years, Djokovic has clearly been the dominant player. So he has a lot of things going for him. But there's always some negatives as well, right? And so one of the things that Djokovic will have to face is there's a lot of pressure, right? A lot of mental pressure. I mean, I think he knows he'll never have this opportunity again, right? That it's unlikely that he'll ever have a chance at a calendar Grand Slam. So this is it for him, right? So he understands sort of the opportunity that this moment presents him, but he also feels a lot of pressure, right? And I think if you look at what happened at the Olympics, you see a little bit of that, right? Because, again, if he had won gold at the Olympics, he would be talking about what we call a golden slam, right? And, in the semifinal match at the Olympics, he lost to Zverev. In a close 3-set match, no shame in that. But then the next day, he lost the bronze match to Carreno Busto, someone that he, would not normally lose to, probably never lost to in a Grand Slam event before. And he sort of lost it, right? He threw a racket into the stands, and he broke a racket. So you see signs that some of the pressure of the moment is getting to Djokovic. And then the other sort of interesting thing, which I think is a little bit of a problem for Djokovic, is that he hasn't played since the Olympics, right? So normally in a normal year, he would have played the Canadian Masters. Of course, Medvedev won that event. He also would have played the Cincinnati Masters. Zverev won that event. And so by sort of skipping, all of the hard court tournaments leading up to the U.S. Open, I think it's a little tougher, right, to sort of show up at the U.S. Open and have the same level of confidence and have sort of your game working at the same level as if you'd played those events. So even though I know that Djokovic is the favorite, I know that Vegas has him as the favorite, I know that he's played better than anyone else this year, I know that he's won all the other slams, I'm going to go out and say that Djokovic does not win the US Open, and that I see 3 reasons why I think he won't win. One is I do think he feels the pressure of the moment. And I think he felt a little bit of that at the Olympics, right? Two, I think if you look at his history, his career history, he just hasn't played his best tennis at the US Open, right? He has less Grand Slam wins at the US Open than any other event. Well, actually, I guess the French would also be similar to that, right? But out of all the hard court events, he's won less at the US Open than any other event, right? And so, I mean, I think that says a little bit, whatever whether it's the court speed or the fact that there's a lot of humidity or it's played at the end of the year. Historically, he hasn't done that well at the US Open. So for all of those reasons, I'm going out on a little bit of a limb, and I'm going to say that Djokovic does not win the US Open. Ted, I'm curious. Let's get your thoughts. I mean, this is the biggest story of the Open. How do you see Djokovic handling this moment?
Djokovic is one of these personalities on the court, and New York is famous for this. The crowds in New York can make or break a player at times. When they get behind a player, it's electric. I mean, they boosted Connors, they boosted Naomi Osaka. When they get behind somebody and fall in love with somebody, it's like in football, you talk about the 12th man. You know what I'm saying? And especially at nighttime. So if he brings some fun to the court and some lightness at times, he can help his case. But I agree with you, though. It's a tremendous amount of pressure that he's put on himself. But again, for me, if I was a coach or people around him, I'd say, listen, make this the fun tournament. Make this, have fun out here. If he has fun, he'll find that'll diffuse some of the tension in the air, and that is his chance of getting in there and winning it. But you're right, though. There's so much talent, though, down the road from him it's only off by that much. So I'm not going to say he's out of it like you are, but the odds are against him, I feel, as well.
I have three favorites that I'm looking at. The first one is Tsitsipas. He's ranked third in the world. He, of course, was a finalist at the French Open, had a 2-0 lead against Djokovic at the French, and then Djokovic came from behind and won that match. I love the way he plays. I'm a big, I'm a doubles player. I'm a big net, fan. And out of all of the top 5 players, I just feel Tsitsipas has more variety in his game, but I love the way every time he has the advantage from the baseline, he comes up right to the net, right? And he puts the ball away, and his net game is good enough that he can kind of come up not just on an almost winner, but almost on a 50-50 ball, right? And I don't see anyone else in the top 5 doing that. The last player that did that was Federer, and I missed that, right? I mean, I think it's just a beautiful part of tennis and the game, and I also think that Tsitsipas's athleticism allows him to stay in the rally and to compete in 4th and 5th sets. And so I'm going to go out on a limb. I know Tsitsipas, is young, and he hasn't always performed his best at Grand Slams. But I'm going to say that Tsitsipas wins the US Open. And I have to be honest, I'm rooting for him because I love the brand of tennis that he plays. And I like the way he's improved year after year. And I think that when Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic step away from tennis, that he would be a great champion in terms of just, a good role model for tennis. But let me go through the other 2 favorites that I see. And of course, Medvedev would be 1. He's ranked 2 in the world. He clearly plays really well on hard court. He's had a really good run in the past at the warm-up tournaments to the US Open. We know in 2019, he lost the final to Nadal. a close 5-set match. He, of course, this year won the Canadian Masters in Toronto. Clearly likes the courts at the US Open, plays well there. He's a more defensive player than Tsitsipas, which is sort of interesting to have someone as tall and lanky as him playing, not necessarily winning off of a big serve and a big forehand, but playing behind the baseline and just getting so many balls back. I really respect Medvedev's strategic stuff, right? That, he's someone who at key moments will do something that is really unpredictable. Maybe he'll serve and volley, which is not something he does that often. He'll come to the net unexpectedly. I think he's somebody that is smart strategically, and kind of files things away in his head and says, like in the final against Nadal, he could see that Nadal was, playing really far behind the baseline, and out of the blue, he started to serve and volley, and it turned the whole momentum of the match around, right? After Tsitsipas, which is my call, I'd put Medvedev as my second favorite, and then my third favorite would be Zverev. And Zverev's had a great year. He won the Olympics. He just won the Masters at Cincinnati. The only reason I'm putting him behind Tsitsipas and Medvedev is he just hasn't played his best tennis at Grand Slam events. And I think the 5-set format still is a little bit of a problem for him. He's not as fit as Tsitsipas. He's not as fit as Medvedev. And I think at the US Open, where it's really humid, and it's towards the end of the year, that can be a critical factor. So although I think Zverev's tennis is just as good as Tsitsipas and Medvedev, I think he's just not quite as fit as those guys. And, in a 4th and 5th set, in pressure situations, I think those two guys are more likely to come through. So Ted, what's your look at the other favorites?
Opelka exposed I think I found a weakness for Tsitsipas, and that's the high backhand. Because he doesn't, he needs to learn to rely or use the slice. And the thing that most people, and I like to think of tennis as 3-dimensional. Most people want to pound the ball, but 3-dimensional tennis for me is height. And that's what I'm saying. When you're hitting the ball above your shoulders, okay, that's his weakness. And I wish Shapovalov has the same problem. They're in love with their topspin backhands, and it's okay to slice. Look at Federer; he'll slice the ball, and when the ball's high up above your shoulder like that, it opens up the court with those short, wide angles with the side spin on there, which will pull your players off the court. It doesn't have to be super hard; it just has to be low and out to the side. So then you get your players running north and south, and you're also playing up and down, and that's why I call that 3-dimensional tennis. So it's going to take, unfortunately, Tsitsipas at least a year to pick up the slice and the weapons you can develop with the slice, and also the mentality needed. Like, for example, neutral, aggressive, and defensive shots, when to pull it out and stuff. Because his reaction is to hit the topspin, which is a beautiful, unbelievable backhand. But he needs to add that to his repertoire, I think, for him to take that next step. Also, in his forehand, I've talked earlier about he needs more rotation in his shoulders for his big forehand. But for me, I'm a big fan of Zverev for the U.S. Open because he's putting the game together. He's got meat on his bones finally. He's more patient. He's working the rallies better, and when he sees the opportunity, he's putting the ball in, not for the winner, but for the 80% chance they won't get it back. So the bad news for him is he still hasn't found his net game. I mean, that's his Achilles heel. And when he gets that, then he'll be a complete player. But when you hit a superlative corner shot or angle shot, you don't have to have a good volley. You just have to dink the ball over to the open court because the guy is so far off the court, it doesn't matter what you do. So that's why I'm thinking Zverev has got, for me, number 2. Medvedev is always tough. And again, I've said this before, I think he's a pusher. He's very, very consistent. He forces you to beat him. And most of the guys that don't have the mental toughness that he has and they can't last, therefore then they unravel. And then, that's how he picks up his wins. So I'm I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say Kashnikov, because the big servers at the U.S. Open, because of the heat and playing at night, have a really good advantage. And if you just hold serve and have the one guy make an easy miss, you got a shot. And with his forehand, if you give him too many looks at a second serve, look out. So that's my upset winner for the tournament for you.